Onto your markets now. Asian markets tumbled today, dragged by Chinese stocks still reeling from dissatisfaction around the latest Chinese stimulus package. During the Asian trading session, cryptocurrency Bitcoin leapt in value, trading just shy of $90,000. The Nikkei share index closed down 0.4%. The Hang Seng index fell by 2.84%, while the Shanghai Composite Index declined by 1.4%. US markets continued on their winning streak, still driven by optimism around the new presidency of Donald Trump, with planned tax cuts and deregulation said to be positives for stock valuations. Meanwhile, Elon Musk's Tesla share prices continued to tear ahead, climbing by 7% at yesterday's close, following on from a 29% increase last week. Crypto-related companies were also seen putting in a good showing as players anticipate a more crypto-friendly legislative environment under Trump. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose by 0.7%. The S&P 500 closed up 0.1%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite ended the session 0.11% in the black. Local markets are currently in the red. The all-share index falling by about 0.9% to 84,037 index points. The rand is trading at 18.08 against the US dollar, 23.16 vis-a-vis the British pound, and 19.19 against the euro. A very marked depreciation against major currencies today. Gold is trading at $2,592 an ounce, platinum at $956 an ounce, and Brent crude oil is trading at $72.16 a barrel. Martin Smith is a portfolio manager at Anchor Capital, and he joins us now. Thanks very much, Martin, for joining us. So US markets are continuing on their high note, but what about other markets? How are European markets viewing a Trump win? Because for them, it's also going to come with threats and, I guess, opportunities.
Yeah, so as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, this US market just continues to melt higher. I think you've seen some positive sentiment come through because obviously Trump is pro the economy, and that obviously leads into being a kind of pro-market environment. So that's been the case there. But the European side of things hasn't really caught any of those tailwinds because you've seen mostly big tech go up and things like that. And European markets aren't really involved in those types of pro-Trump industries. So in fact, it's been quite lackluster insofar as what that market's been doing over the last couple sessions. So yeah, I think it remains that the US is the place to be.
Yeah. So today is the third consecutive day that we're seeing subdued activity on the JSE. What's been driving sentiment, and what's happened to the rand? I mean, it's completely lost the gains that it made.
Yeah, so two things. So firstly, the market itself. So a couple of things. You've got Donald Trump, whose relations with China, we're not quite sure how that's going to pan out, and tariffs and restrictions, all those things, and that affects South Africa directly on our market because of our resource exposure, our exposure to Tencent by Naspers and Prosus. So that's weighed a little bit on kind of the JSE sentiment in the last few sessions. You've also had a miss out of Richemont, which is quite a big constituent of the JSE itself. So that share price also came down, which also put us a little bit in the red. So you've got those two factors playing out. And then on the rand perspective, again, Trump is very pro-business, very pro-America, which is good for a strong dollar, also very inflationary in the way that he does things, which, again, strong dollar, weak rand. And unfortunately for us, we're going to have to fight a bit against sentiment that's sitting a little bit against us and rely on our own kind of self-help story.
Yeah, no, it's tough on us indeed. So with the rand trending weaker ahead of the Reserve Bank's call on interest rates, what's your reading of what they may decide?
So I mean, it definitely plays a part in their thinking, but I think inflation is kind of the primary objective from them, and we're very much in the kind of lower end of the 3 to 6% kind of range that they're looking for. So that, plus the fact that the US have cut rates in the last couple of days, I think we'll see rates continue to go low from South Africa's perspective. 25 bips at the next meeting, I think, 0.25%. And I think while the rand plays a part, like I mentioned, I think at 18, I think we're still okay at these levels, but obviously one to keep an eye out on.
Another currency, some people believe in it, some people don't, Bitcoin. That's just going through the roof, flirting with $90,000. Perhaps whilst I was in studio, it's gone through that. I'm not quite sure. But just speak to us about the drivers of Bitcoin and your thoughts.
Yeah, so Bitcoin's always been a supply-demand sentiment kind of dynamic. And with Trump coming in, you've seen sentiment in general improve, as well as sentiment around Bitcoin, given his views and policies and things that might kind of come into play or not come into play. So it's been very pro from a Bitcoin perspective. And again, sentiment is very good. There's a lot of positivity out there, and just remains to be seen if that continues or if something else comes along. But at the moment, things are very positive across the board, and very much so for the things like Bitcoin.
And just in terms of company results, we see that Premier came out with their half-year numbers, showing quite a good form. Just tell us about your thoughts on their numbers.
So their numbers were good. You saw the share price up a couple percent, and mostly from their bakery business, which makes up kind of 80% of the whole group itself. So the bakery business did very well, and I think actually provides quite a good growth story going forward, because as they're looking to increase capacity in that bakery business, I think it's quite a good growth story for them. So, and if you look at the share price over the last little while, it reflects quite a positive bit of sentiment that's come through for the share price and the potential growth they have out of that bakery business. So things are looking good, and happy if you're one of their shareholders, I guess.
So Pick n Pay put out an advisory yesterday about the listing of its low-cost retailer Boxer. For people who may be interested, how do you go about getting invested into a company that's newly listing in what's called an initial public offering?
Yes, so initial public offering, IPO is also what's the kind of term that's branded around. So how you normally do it is you'll have to go via an institution, and then each institution gets allocated stock depending on their appetite, and you don't always get exactly what you applied for. So it's quite an interesting process. But after the stock lists, you can obviously then buy Boxer itself. You can also buy Pick n Pay itself, which has exposure to Boxer directly. So there's a couple of ways to get it, but the IPO, you'll need to go through kind of the institution that you trade with and see what you can get from the application perspective.
Awesome. And then just lastly, just in terms of your general outlook for the South African markets as we head towards the end of the year, what is the outlook?
So I think we are affected a little bit negatively, but like I mentioned, by what's happening in China from a sentiment perspective, and what is the US going to do with relations and policies around them, and how's that going to affect our resources, Naspers, Tencent, all of those things. So I think there is a little bit of an overhang, but in general, I'm still positive that we'll get a little bit of a rally into kind of Christmas. Our market still looks reasonably valued, and I still think that things in South Africa are also improving. So I think we could see a little bit of rally going into the end of the year.
All right, we wait and see. Thank you so much, Martin, for your insights. As always, Martin Smith is a portfolio manager at Anchor Capital.